Want to know why lenders keep rejecting your funding requests while your competition locks down deals left and right? I review hundreds of real estate funding applications each month, and I've noticed a pattern. 3 critical mistakes that instantly send applications to the rejection pile. Today, I'm going to tell you what these 3 funding killers are, and I'm going to show you exactly how to flip each one into approval. These aren't just theories, these are the exact same strategies our most successful investors use to get approved for 100% funding and pick up the best deals before their competition can. Mistake number 1, submitting a deal that doesn't pencil out. A lot of investors think that if there's some profit, they'll still get funded. So the reason this is not enough is because there are closing costs, there are contingencies in your budget, there's all kinds of things that can cause project to not go as planned. When you're determining what you're going to purchase your property at, you have to be considering not only what rehab needs to occur, but what mistakes may occur, what closing costs are going to occur, what holding costs are you going to have, includes your electric and your electric and utility bills, your insurance, things like that. Those are all things that are going to be eating away at your profits. And so it's important that you start with a solid margin, reduce your purchase price by the rehab amount, and then give yourself contingency in there as well. So our formula is 70% of the ARV minus the rehab. That's the maximum you should be paying. I'm an investor. I want to get deals. I want to make money. And that first deal will give you quite a zinger of dopamine. It'll get you quite high. It gets you excited because there's another opportunity out there. But as you're getting, a lot of times when you're getting your systems and your processes figured out, the biggest problem that you run into is that you don't have necessarily the deal flow that maybe some of the bigger investors have. You see other people snatching up deals, and you're putting in aggressive offers and or what you think are aggressive offers, and there's somebody who can beat you. And the reality is that this market out here is just saturated with FOMO. People who have a fear of missing out. And it's so important to make sure that you are not getting into that state where you're just constantly afraid that you're going to miss out on a deal. The right deal is out there. Even the best of the best investors have bigger margins. I know investors who run mentorships who have deeper margins than people who have less money trying to lock up deals. So why would a multimillionaire be going with deeper margins? That's how he became a multimillionaire, right? So people like Nate Barger, he invests with huge margins. So let's say we start with ARV minus 70% minus your rehab, and then he gives himself a huge buffer zone to buy that property, to make sure that he's buying deep enough to cover all of the costs and make sure that he's got plenty on the table to eat when he is done putting in all of that sweat equity. Key takeaway here, don't have FOMO. The right deal will come. When we're looking at a deal to decide whether or not it pencils, there are several components that we look at. First one's going to be ARV. Does the assessment of the borrower match what the market says that property is worth, right? The market decides what the ARV is. Nobody else does. So it's really important to make sure that we are pegging that after repair value accurate to the market. This comes down to your comping skills. So it's super important to make sure that you build those skills up of comping and not deciding what your value of that property is based on emotion. Second thing is making sure that you really nail your rehab. It's directly proportional to how valuable that property is today. So if you underestimate the rehab by $10,000, $20,000, that's a big mistake, and that's going to get you denied. And we'll find that. It's very easy to find when you've missed a huge chunk of rehab. You look at your ARV properties and you see what kind of shape they're in. You look at what their kitchen looks like, and then we just look at your scope of work. All right, this property's got a solid $10,000 kitchen. They've got the same kind of finishes in the kitchen. Yours here, you've got a budget of $3,000 for your kitchen, and it needs a complete gut job. Those are the kinds of things that we're going to pull out immediately. So your rehab budget's got to be accurate. The other component that we're going to look at is more borrower focused. That is your experience we personally require that you have experience if you're going to be doing anything over a $20,000 cosmetic rehab. So you got to have at least 2 deals behind you with someone who's guided you through that process. It could be with a partner. You could have done it with your own money and gone through the pain and trials and tribulations of doing that deal on your own. Or you could just grab a partner and you work through that deal together and have that experienced person guide you through. The last piece that's really important is making sure that you do have enough liquidity. Even though at our company we can give up to 100% funding for the purchase and the rehab, you still have to have liquidity to be able to pull off a deal. So the rehab budget in particular, that's held back. So you have to push the value of the property forward with your own money, then we reimburse you. So your liquidity is directly related to your ability to get approved or not. If you want to find out whether or not you would qualify for up to 100% funding for your purchase and your rehab, there's a simple way that you can find that out on our website. We've created a tool just for you. All you need is an ARV, your rehab budget, and your purchase price. Or you can even use this tool to determine your purchase price so that you can make aggressive offers. That's the real life hack right there. So just go to creativecashpartners.com and look for resources, click Stoplight Loan Analyzer. There's a nice video from me talking about how to use it, but I'm going to show you right now. All you need is your ARV. So if you've got an ARV of $500,000, needs $50,000 worth of work, you just put in what your purchase price is and you'll find out whether or not it qualifies for 100% funding, or if it needs a down payment, or if it just is a no-go zone deal, okay? So let's just say you purchase, you're negotiating a purchase price of $240,000. This is fully fundable. We'll fund 100%. Your as-is value for this property is objectively $300,000, so that's the maximum you should be paying for it. If you're purchasing it at $240,000, you're getting a great deal. So we'll give you $240,000 at purchase, $50,000 for your rehab, which we'll hold back and release in draws, and you'll have a total loan amount of $290,000. Let's just say that you negotiate a purchase price of, say, $260,000. That's just going to show that you are going to owe the difference between our loan at purchase of $240,000 and what you're purchasing it at, which is $20,000. So your down payment's going to be $20,000. Loan at purchase stays the same, $240,000. And then rehab of $50,000, and your total loan amount is $290,000 on this one. Again, if you're purchasing way too high, let's say you're purchasing at $320,000, we're going to let you know right away that is not fundable. And it doesn't matter how much money you want to bring as a down payment, or if you want to offer cross collateral. Our philosophy is it has to be a win-win for you and for us. And in that scenario, we don't see a path forward for you to make good money using our loan product on this particular purchase price. This would not work for you. You would end up actually upside down. Even if you brought a down payment, there's just no viable pathway to make money. So we don't want to fund deals where we're secure, but you don't stand a chance of making money. So you can use this tool to, again, figure out what your total loan amount is going to be, and you can use it to figure out what kinds of purchase prices you can negotiate. So I would use this tool and make aggressive cash offers. Mistake number 2, submitting sloppy or incomplete rehab plans. This is such an important point. When you are submitting your rehab plans, you need to be detailed. You need to know what you're walking into. When you are filling out your scope of work, you need to be accounting for all of the items that you're going to need to put money into. And some commonly missed items include, taking care of those bugs that you see, the bug activity that you're seeing in the house, the termite activity. If you see that kind of activity, you need to address it. You see mold in the house, you need to have a plan for that. The biggest thing that I see a lot of people do and investors do is they'll dismiss an obvious fee because, well, I'll go ahead and take care of that myself. Well, that goes to the objective value of the house. It's important to know that that's a component to bringing this house to its final market value. And so it does figure into what is the house worth today. So when you're compiling your rehab plans, you need to be extremely detailed and make sure that you're using market rates for what that's going to cost. Now, if you get to save money in an area, that's just a win for you. But when you're estimating what is it worth today, you need to be thinking in terms of what is it actually going to cost on average to get this project done right. You might be asking, so like, what's the difference between a rehab plan that's going to build trust with my lender and what's the one that's going to get denied? Well, let me tell you, submitting a scope of work that is a screenshot of a text message with your contractor is not a good way to go and get the confidence of your lender. Submitting a scope of work that was scratched out on a literal napkin, and I'm giving real examples of things I've seen come into our system. The snapshot, the picture of a napkin with literal numbers written on it is not a great way to go and sell yourself as an organized and authoritative investor. You need to have it itemized out. I want to see each room. I want to see each item. I don't want to see a Word document that says, we're thinking about doing some stuff in the kitchen. Great. What? You have to show what you're planning on doing. What are you planning on doing in the kitchen? We're going to replace all of the cabinets. We're going to put in, new countertops. We're putting in a new backsplash. Be detailed. Let us know what you're planning on doing. And that helps us understand, okay, your price point makes sense or it doesn't make sense. I've seen kitchens where the cabinets are literally falling off the wall and a rehab budget for the kitchen in the realm of about $3,000. Across the nation, that's ludicrous. No one is going to get a kitchen done for $3,000. That's a standard, mid-sized, kitchen for just $3,000, where they're going to have to go and do all brand new cabinets, all new backsplash, all new flooring, you name it, all new fixtures. That's just not feasible considering your labor and your cost of material. So it's important to make sure that your rehab budget is well planned, well expressed, and that it is priced according to the market. And that's very, very easy to get at least the ballpark numbers for what is your market going to cost you. Your rehab plan needs to take into account what does the rest of the neighborhood have, right? So if you're fixing up your house to be either greater than all of the rest of the neighborhood, that's not a win, okay? Because all you did was overcompensate for the neighborhood. And so your house is the nicest on the block. You've spent the most money, but you're not going to make that money necessarily back, okay? So having the greatest finishes in the whole neighborhood is not a win. But also having subpar finishes. If all of your ARV properties, your rehab budget needs to take into account what the rest of the neighborhood has. So when you're looking at your ARV comps, you need to be looking at what are the finishes in those houses. So if the rest of the neighborhood has all modern cabinetry and it looks up to date, they've got the modern countertops that are up to date, and you're planning on doing just some painting on the kitchen cabinets, and those cabinets are from the 1970s, that's going to be insufficient. You're not going to command the same price as the rest of the neighborhood, so your house is not going to be in ARV condition. Likewise, if you're overcompensating, you're putting in the nicest, fancy-looking cabinets in the whole neighborhood, that's going to be an overcompensation. You're overcompensating for the market. So, great for instance, we have a lot of investments in West Virginia. A lot of the homes that are selling that are quote-unquote ARV condition, they might have painted cabinets. So if you're going to be the one guy putting in the nicest cabinets available in the neighborhood, you're going to be overcompensating a little bit. That's not to say that you shouldn't rehab and bring in new cabinetry. Sometimes that is what's necessary to bring it to a livable condition. But you don't want to end up in a situation where you're way overcompensated for what your ARV properties are. For light cosmetics, it really comes down to whether or not it's going to be a fairly comprehensive cosmetic. Are you going down to the level of maybe putting in some nicer, new flooring that you can put in really quickly? Or are we just simply doing a paint job, cleaning up, and sprucing up the yard? Each one of those is gonna vary depending on how detailed your breakdown is gonna need to be. But at the end of the day, your lender still needs to know, what do you plan on doing? Are you only planning on cleaning? Are you planning on doing flooring? Are you planning on doing painting? Are you planning on doing landscaping? Or are you planning on doing something far more involved? For light cosmetic flips, it's a little bit different in that it's not as extensive what you're going into, but you still need to be detailed as to what you're going to actually accomplish in that cosmetic flip, right? So while we may not need to have a super long scope of work, I still need to understand what you're planning on doing. Are you planning on just doing a clean and flip, or are you planning on doing a lot more involved? Are you planning on painting the whole house, maybe even putting in some new LVP flooring, which is a very quick and simple fix, but does matter when it comes to deciding, how involved are we really getting? So just saying it's a light cosmetic flip in your application is a big difference from telling me what you're accomplishing as a light cosmetic flip and helping me understand your definition of what a light cosmetic flip is. Mistake number 3, overestimating the ARV. This is something I harp on a lot. I am working to drive this point home to my viewers. It is the single most common reason why deals do not go through. It is because of way overestimating the ARV and getting it just completely wrong. I see this over and over and over again, even with folks who are fairly seasoned as investors or have lots of deals behind them, who have still just not gotten out of the phase of investing by feeling. It seems to be a common thing. I think this one will go for this much. You gotta know that it's gonna go for that much. And you need to know that by investing in your skills of comping. There are so many videos out there, so many tools out there to help you build this skill of comping. And it's the number one skill that you need to work on is being able to pull comps that are accurate comps. Great example. We had a gentleman submit a deal just a couple weeks ago, and he was under the impression that his property would be worth $360,000 or so. But our comps, when we pulled accurate comps and narrowed it down by square footage and narrowed it down by the distance between the houses and the style of the house to make sure that they're all the same style or very similar style. Once we did that, the ARV came in very clearly at $260,000. But he was dead set, and he even called into question our comps because his realtor said so. And this is common. Realtors don't know how to comp. A lot of realtors don't know how to comp. I'm sorry if you're a realtor, but it is common. And this realtor had convinced the gentleman that his property was worth $360,000 because he was comparing his 1,900 square foot house with houses in the neighborhood that were 3,600 square feet. That is like comparing your Toyota Prius with a Ford F-150 and saying, hey, your Toyota Prius is worth the same amount as this truck over here. It's ludicrous. And for some reason in real estate, this is a common mistake. You can see on paper, it is such a clear size difference. It's such a clear difference in amenities. And yet I'm stuck on this and I'm convinced that my property is worth the same amount as this big old honking house over here. My little one is worth this much. Doesn't make sense. You have to work on your skill of comps. Here's why it's so important to make sure that you comp right. This is a gallon. It's a water jug, but it's a gallon. This one is a water jug. And you know what? I think it's worth the same amount as this one right here. It's got the same value. It holds the same value. No. This is why comping is important. And you're probably laughing, but you know what? I'm serious. Because this is what a lot of investors do with homes. So those are the 3 fastest ways to get denied for real estate funding and the exact steps to turn those denials into approvals. You don't need perfect credit. You don't need years of experience. You just need a solid deal and a plan that makes sense and a lender that can move fast. And that's exactly what we do. So if you're ready to get approved in 48 hours or less, lock in 100% funding for both purchase and rehab, and do it with no monthly payments or equity splits, then click the link in the description to book a call. And if you want to dive deeper into the kind of deals we fund and how we help new investors get approved, watch this next video right here. See you there.